In 1984, Nike was dying. They just posted their first quarterly loss ever. Reebok was crushing them, and they were about to make the most desperate bet in sports marketing history. Put their entire basketball budget on a rookie who didn't even want to sign with them. That rookie was Michael Jordan, and this is how a guy selling shoes from his trunk built a $200 billion empire. The year is 1962. Phil Knight is a 24-year-old MBA student at Stanford, and he's obsessed with one question: how do you beat Adidas? At the time, Adidas dominated the athletic shoe market, but Knight had an idea. What if you could manufacture high-quality running shoes in Japan for way cheaper, then undercut Adidas in America? He wrote his entire business school thesis on this concept, and unlike most business school ideas that die in a filing cabinet, Knight actually did something about it. In 1963, he flew to Japan, walked into the Onitsuka Tiger factory, and somehow convinced them to let him distribute their shoes in the United States. The catch? He made up a fake company name on the spot: Blue Ribbon Sports. He returned to Oregon with samples and a handshake deal, but he needed help. So he reached out to his old college track coach, Bill Bowerman, a legend who was obsessed with making better running shoes. Their deal was simple. Knight would handle business, Bowerman would handle product. They each put in $500. Total starting capital? $1,000. Knight's office? The trunk of his green Plymouth Valiant. He'd drive to track meets, pop the trunk, and sell shoes to runners. At night, he worked as an accountant to pay rent. First-year sales? $8,000. But Bowerman wasn't just selling shoes, he was modifying them. He'd take Tigers apart, experiment with different materials, and rebuild them. In 1967, one of his designs, the Tiger Cortez, became a massive hit. By 1979, Blue Ribbon Sports was doing $1 million in revenue. But in 1971, everything almost fell apart. Onitsuka Tiger wanted to buy out Blue Ribbon Sports and take full control. Knight refused. The partnership ended. Suddenly, they had no shoes to sell. They needed a new brand, and they needed it fast. An employee named Jeff Johnson came up with the name Nike after the Greek goddess of victory. They needed a logo. Knight asked a Portland State design student named Carolyn Davidson to create something simple. She came back with the swoosh. Knight's reaction? "I don't love it, but it'll grow on me." He paid her $35. That $35 logo is now one of the most recognizable symbols on Earth. On May 30th, 1971, Blue Ribbon Sports officially became Nike Inc. Now they needed their own shoe. Bowerman had an idea. One morning, he was making waffles with his wife when inspiration struck. He grabbed her waffle iron, poured rubber into it, and created the waffle sole. The pattern gave better traction and weighed less than any sole on the market. It was a game changer. Nike launched with this innovation at the perfect time. The 1970s jogging boom was exploding across America. Everyone suddenly wanted running shoes. Revenue tripled from 1974 to 1976, $14 million, then doubled again the next year, $28 million. By 1980, Nike owned 50% of the U.S. athletic shoe market. In December of that year, they went public. Phil Knight's shares were suddenly worth $178 million. The guy who'd been selling shoes from his trunk was now a multi-millionaire. And in the early 1980s, Nike overtook Adidas as the #1 athletic brand in America. They'd won. Or so they thought. In 1984, Nike reported their first quarterly loss ever. The problem? Fashion was shifting. The performance running shoe craze was cooling off. Reebok was dominating with aerobics shoes, targeting women, focusing on style over performance. Nike had completely missed the trend. Their shoes looked boring. Sales were tanking. The company was in crisis mode. They needed something big, something that would remind people why Nike mattered. Their solution? Basketball. The NBA was growing in popularity. And in the NBA draft of 1984, there were three incredible prospects: Hakeem Olajuwon, Sam Bowie, and some kid from North Carolina named Michael Jordan. But here's the thing. Nike's basketball division was tiny. They had a $250,000 budget for the entire year. That's nothing. And Michael Jordan? He didn't want to sign with Nike. His dream brand was Adidas. He'd worn Adidas his whole life. Adidas had first crack at him, but they were dealing with internal family drama and barely made an offer. Converse offered him $100,000 a year. Nike had one shot. Nike's head of basketball, Sonny Vaccaro, had a crazy idea. Forget spreading the budget across multiple players. Put everything on Michael Jordan. The entire $250,000 basketball budget on one rookie. Nike approved it, but they'd have to offer way more than anyone had ever paid an NBA player for an endorsement. They offered Jordan $500,000 a year for 5 years. That's $2.5 million total, more than triple any NBA shoe deal in history. But they didn't stop there. They gave him his own signature shoe line, 5% royalties on every sale, and creative control over the design. Jordan's parents convinced him to at least take the meeting. When he walked into Nike headquarters, they showed him a video. They showed him the Air Jordan 1 prototype. They told him he wouldn't just be another athlete in their stable. He would be the brand. Jordan signed on October 26, 1984. The contract had a protection clause. If Jordan didn't win Rookie of the Year, make the All-Star team, average 20 points per game, or generate $4 million in shoe sales by year 3, Nike could walk away. Jordan achieved all 4 in his rookie season. In April 1985, the Air Jordan 1 launched at $65 a pair. Nike's internal goal was $3 million in sales over 3 years. They did $126 million in the first year. But it gets better. The NBA banned the black and red colorway because it violated uniform rules. They fined Jordan $5,000 every game he wore them. Nike paid the fines, and then they built an entire marketing campaign around it, banned by the NBA. It was genius. Suddenly, everyone wanted the shoes the league didn't want you to wear. In 1988, Nike launched their Just Do It campaign. The slogan came from ad agency Dan Whedon, inspired by the last words of a death row inmate. It became the most iconic tagline in advertising history. By 1990, Nike had 30% of the U.S. market. Reebok was down to 20%. The crisis was over. In 1997, Jordan Brand became its own division. By 2021, it was generating $5.1 billion a year on its own. Today, Nike's market cap fluctuates, but at its peak, reached over $200 billion. The company that started with $1,000 and a car trunk now does $46 billion in annual revenue. Phil Knight stepped down as CEO in 2004, but remained chairman until 2016. His net worth? Over $40 billion. So, what's the lesson here? Nike didn't win because they had the best product from day one. They won because they took massive risks when everyone else played it safe. They put their entire basketball budget on an unproven rookie. They paid NBA fines to create controversy. They bet on innovation when cheaper was easier. And, maybe most importantly, they understood something their competitors didn't. Shoes aren't just about performance. They're about culture, identity, aspiration. The swoosh doesn't just represent a shoe company. It represents the idea that if you work hard enough, if you're willing to bet on yourself, you can achieve greatness. Just do it.